Hello folks, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another One Piece review. This time we're covering Manga chapter 1172. Now, honestly, I think it's fair to say that this chapter has a very polarizing opinion. On the one hand, a lot of people are excited about this chapter, and on the other hand, you got another group of fans who are not too pleased with this chapter because they felt, and I'm going to be completely honest, I thought this chapter was a very average chapter. There was a huge takeaway from this chapter, but I'll get into that. But if we're being completely honest with ourselves, it was a completely average chapter. This is like a setup chapter as to what's to come with the Holy Knights. But I will say before I dive into that, there is something that I found interesting. A Niflheim attack from the Ragnar that Loki launched, because I was kind of curious because we saw some cracks where I thought was cracks in around the air. Turns out Niflheim, they're describing a realm of mist, ice, and darkness. So that explains the cracks with the ice. Oda's like combined a lot of different elements here. Granted, it's still Norse mythology, so Oda's taking the name of Niflheim, which, by the way, is a way of describing the realm of the dead, the underworld, what we got with Elbaph. So also one of the 9 realms of the Yggdrasil in Norse mythology, so there you go. He's obviously taken the lightning attack from what the hammer that Thor actually uses, only it's Loki using it. So he's taken the thunder from that and using it for the attacks. Now he's incorporating an ice-based attack. Now, granted, we don't know the full scale of this attack because we don't get to see Loki nor Luffy in this chapter. I'll start off with the cover page, the cover request, and honestly this was one of the more notable parts of the chapter, especially with the Easter eggs involved. So you got Bon Chan. There are 2 takeaways from this cover page. Number 1 is a cover request, so it's not canon involving Bon Clay, so calm down. Second is the Easter eggs involved when it comes to like the swans in the background, and this is what a lot of people are talking about, especially those involved with the lunar fandom here, because you got 2 swans, one clearly has a straw hat and the other has a crown. Now, even though he goes on to say he doesn't like to focus on romance in One Piece, I do find it interesting that he incorporated 2 swans with a straw hat and a crown. Now, if you've been around long enough the fandom, you know that's symbolic because, and the crown representing a queen, and when it comes to the straw hats, Luffy and Nami are considered the king and queen. It's hard not to think that Oda doesn't pay attention to that, so I'm just going to throw that out there. But what's interesting about this, and the reason why people are taking to this, is because Oda made an illustration when it comes to like the Besatsu Shonen magazine that came out for the 50th anniversary that he purchased, and he did an illustration. Now, it's also important to note, yes, Nami and Luffy are in that illustration, but also so is Chopper, and they're dolling Luffy up with the same makeup that Bon Clay has. So we start off the chapter, and immediately Oda starts us off with the rundown from Scopper to Sanji, Zoro, and the rest of the new Giant Warrior Pirates to like give them the rundown about the abilities and the plan of the Holy Knights. He goes on to describe the plan of the Holy Knights. Use the children to like blackmail Elbaph, the giants of Elbaph. Then he goes on to describe the 3 Holy Knights' abilities. Now he starts off with Gunko saying the arrow abilities, but to me that's kind of like outdated because he's only describing the abilities he saw when he faced Gunko previously before Gunko transformed. So I think it's a completely different ball game. He goes on to mention Saint Summers, which is more noticeable because he's not only dealt with Saint Summers, but so has Rayleigh. So he goes on to say Saint Summers has the Thorn abilities, and then he goes on to say Saint Gillingham, the 3rd Holy Knight, has the abilities to bring the nightmare creatures from nightmares to life. This is just a recap of stuff that we already knew that some people may have got. This is something that Oda usually does. When we come out of that gigantic flashback, he did it in Dressrosa, he did it in Wano, he did it after the Kazuki Oden flashback, so this is par for the course when it comes to Oda. They make it to the Sun Realm and they're immediately greeted by Kashi, who is telling them about what's going on with Dory and Brogy and then trying to kill Ja Rule because he knows too much and they wanted to take him out. Which is pretty much, this chapter was for Ja Rule, pretty much. Like, the hype was for Ja Rule. Now, Gerd asks about the kids and how they're doing. Then Kashi tells Rodo about Born, who apparently, after he runs off learning that he's been kidnapped, we come to find out Born is Rodo's brother, which is kind of interesting. Like, they just revealed that out of nowhere. That could be kind of cool for Rodo's character, because up until this point he's been nothing more than a gag character. In fact, you know this is serious when even Gerd and Goldberg are following in pursuit, and it's not a gag. Like, Gerd isn't saying, "Oh, you're lower than scum." Like, this is not a gag. This is serious business with the Holy Knight. So now Sanji is asking Kashi which way is the school, because he's already thinking that's where Nami and the others will end up being, or be close to that. Then he notices the library's on fire. And then you got Zoro with Haradin, who they pretty much go on their own venture, and because Zoro's like asking about the whole situation of Dory and Brogy. So like, we got Zoro and Sanji parting ways. They're going on two paths, which you know where this is leading. So I'll get to that shortly. Then Oda finally reveals what's going on with Branch 8 and what's going on with the Straw Hats involving Robin, Nami, Usopp, Jinbei, Brook. Now, a couple of things through the scene. One, this is kind of like disappointing because it's the only time we see Robin, and she's staring the other way to the library because she's seen looking on as the library is burning. She can't do nothing about it. Then you got Nami, who's like thinking of ways to like, I need to find a way to cut these arrows to free us from these arrows. Then you got Usopp, who's like, I couldn't reason with Dory and Brogy. Damn it! So all he can do is look on. Then you got Jinbei, who brings up the situation. Chopper, he won't be back for a while. Little does he know that Chopper is on his way back up, along with Scarpa, so that's not going to amount to much. But what he goes on to say is, like, Brook's disappeared and he's gone off elsewhere. He probably has a plan in mind. So that's news to me, because, wait, Brook was able to escape. So, and Oda was very careful of not showing Brook at all in this scene or in this chapter. Go back and look at the entire chapter. I don't think he showed Brook whatsoever. So either Brook found the way to escape physically, or he's using the devil fruit and he's using his soul to survey the situation and come up with a plan. Maybe. Then following that, Ja Rule is being told, listen, we need to escape because you're going to die here. Ja Rule's like, no, I'm not going anywhere because I got something I need to say and I got to tell Elbaph. So he picks up the Dendamushi and he's about to tell the truth about what happened 14 years ago involving King Harold. Loki is not responsible, and the fact that he had to keep it secret to prevent any future wars from happening, to preserve the resolve of King Harold. But now that's gone up in flames, literally, because obviously what the Holy Knights are doing. But I like how Oda is using this opportunity to like hype up like Ja Rule. I don't think he's gonna die necessarily. Like, it's like teasing like he's gonna die. I don't think so. Especially with what happens by the end of this chapter. So talking, you've got a shot of the three Holy Knights. We actually get to see them, and you know time has passed because Saint Summers has fully regenerated. So that's different, because the last time we saw him in present time, he was on the floor licking his wounds after the damage caused by Scarpa. Now he's pretty much reformed. And my question is, why isn't he at the area with Robin and co? And Gunko / Emu is overhearing this, and finally, because the beans are being spilled to the rest of Elbaph that Loki isn't responsible for this, he's not to blame for this, the world government are to blame for this, and from this day onwards, we're going to stand against the world government. So it's been declared, no matter what, they're going to be allies to Luffy against the world government. So their plan's about to fail because they're using the kids to like manipulate them. We know that's going to fail. And you know this speech is epic when even this impresses Zoro. He's like, oh, I got some respect for this old geezer. Impressive. But then it looks like Dory and Brogy are about to like corner like Ja Rule. But Zoro is like, no. I got a plan in mind. Don't worry. Because you literally see them right by where the area where Ja Rule is at. And you got Zoro thinking he's got a plan in mind. So that's how Oda decides to end the chapter. And like I said before, a very meh chapter, if I'm being completely honest. It is a setup chapter as to what's to come next. So I'm not going to harp on it too much. But considering how long we had to wait to see the rest of the Straw Hats, it was kind of deflating to get only a couple of shots of Nami, Robin, and company. Like, wow. Like, I hope things are going to improve as far as like Robin and Usopp are concerned, especially Usopp, considering for the most part he hasn't really done a whole lot. And unless they manage to get those arrows undone, I don't think Usopp's going to be doing anything for quite a while. Now, this could have something to do with Brook, because to me, that was the biggest takeaway from this entire chapter. Like, what is Brook up to? It may have something to do with Gunko. To me, I felt this chapter was very deflating considering all the hype going into it. Now, granted, that could be on the One Piece fans because we didn't really know what to expect. But I'm sorry, when you leave it on, it seemed like Oda was going to have Usopp and Robin do something before Oda cut away to reveal this flashback and go down below to focus on Luffy and Loki and all that business. Oda decided to cut away from that for 7 months. For 7 months, we've been waiting, and this is what we get. Now, granted, I hope things will improve. They should improve. From looking like seemed like Robin and Usopp were going to do something, especially Usopp trying to reason with them, but it didn't really map to anything. That's kind of disappointing. Robin's done a lot more when you compare it to the other Straw Hats, but I would like Oda to like follow through with that if possible, considering what we got with Egghead Island, which is what a lot of people have reservations about. Like, they don't want to see that again. I don't want to see that again. Which brings me to what we got involving Sanji and Zoro. Now, I think it's crystal clear where this is going and who is going to end up fighting who. I think it's fair to say, like, after Zoro gets through with this plan, which I'm pretty sure is going to have him either involve herding throw Zoro over to block an attack from Dorian Brogy, much like he did with Olympus back in Dressrosa, where Olympus threw Zoro to cut Pika in half and to finish him off, and how Jinbei threw Zoro to intercept Nasjiro's attack back in Egghead Island from attacking the Sunny. So we could get something similar here involving Haradine, or we could get something involving the duo, maybe reverse the situation, I don't know. But then after whatever Zoro's plan is, we got some pairings involving the Holy Knights and Zoro and Sanji. I think it's fair to say that at this stage, St. Killingham's going to go to Zoro and St. Summers is going to go to Sanji. I think that's fair to say. I mean, Sanji and St. Summers, that just makes more sense from a character standpoint. Look at the both of them. Now, Scarpa dealt with St. Summers previously, so since Sanji's the equivalent to Scarpa, you would think that Sanji's going to face off against St. Summers here. But I'll get to that in a second. Like I said, I think Zoro vs. St. Killingham, for me, is more of an intriguing matchup. Oda could flip the script here and have Zoro face St. Summers. That's a possibility too. So when it comes to like Sanji and going up against the Holy Knight, whether that's St. Summers or not, the fact of the matter is, like, we know that Advanced Conqueror's Haki is pretty much the kryptonite for the Holy Knights and their regenerative capabilities. Like, it slows it down. We know this. We saw this with St. Summers. Granted, they could gradually regenerate, but it takes a long time. But also, power scaling wise, it may make sense to like boost Sanji up, because Oda's already teased something involving Conqueror's Haki and Sanji. We have seen Sanji never use Conqueror's Haki yet. So is Oda going to pull the double whammy here and not only have Sanji use Conqueror's Haki for the first time, but advance Conqueror's Haki? Like, he kind of has to if he's going to do any damage to like St. Summers here. And you got Loki and Luffy eventually teaming up against Gunko in the demon form, which is going to be epic. But like I said, not much to take away from this chapter other than Brook like potentially doing something, hopefully involving Gunko. Let me know what you guys think down below. That's going to do it for guys. If you guys know what to do, if you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up. I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys' support when it comes to these One Piece reviews. Catch you guys later. Thanks, guys. Bye.